you should know. You make somebody wanna hold you and never let you go. And if a sweet loving mama make a sweet loving child now, your mother must have been a lover. When she was young, I bet she drove the little boys wild. Look what you do now, you're her daughter. I said your mama must have told you all the things you should know. You make somebody wanna hold you and never let you go when you're fine. I said your mama must have told you all the things you should know. You make somebody wanna hold you and never let you go. And if a good-looking mama make a good-looking child now, your mother must have been a beauty. When you were young, I bet you drove the little boys wild. Look what you do now, you're a lady. I said your mama must have told you all you should know. You make somebody wanna hold you and never let you go.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall. Where'd the old town go? Did my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can also download our iPhone app and you can listen to it on your iPhone or iPad. And you can call us here at 614-5553. And my lovely co-host, my wife, Debbie Moore, good morning.
Good morning, Ron. Today is July the 20th, 2013. We have a very special guest with us this morning. We have Miss Sandra Webb Hyder, and she is from Reliance, Tennessee, from a place called Webb Store. And I know everybody has great Webb Store stories, and I hope you'll call in and share those with us. And she's going to be sharing the history of the store and her family.
I've been looking forward to this, and a lot of people have too. And before we get started, I want to mention that the Relay for Life is starting at 11 o'clock down at the Tri-State Exhibition Center. There's entertainment down there all day. There's food. I think the first band comes on about 12, and that's Double Shot Band. And Zach Dylan comes on at around 2. And then Fro Daddy and the Convertibles come on at 5 o'clock down at the Relay for Life. And then if you like the Convertibles, you can go up to the B&B Marina later on tonight, and that'll be at 9 o'clock. I'd like to thank the people down at Boyd Speedway down in Chattanooga, actually in Ringgold, Georgia. You go across out of Tennessee in East Ridge, and you're into Ringgold, and that's where the racetrack sits, right right on the other side of the Tennessee-Georgia border. We went down and shot our opening shots for our dirt track documentary. And the people at Boyd were just great. The drivers were great. The fans were good. The people up in the press box, everybody just was real cooperative with us. We really like to thank them. Great racetrack. They have racing there every Friday night, full programs, and they usually start racing at 7 o'clock. And we were down at the drivers meeting, and when he says we're starting at 7, he starts at 7.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you
and
better
there
be
was
on the track,
racing and
racing.
fires and wrecks.
Yeah,
and
there was all that good stuff there.
all that good stuff.
Food,
And they were very
and there was
accommodating.
food.
There was
Yeah,
food.
good concession
They
stand
had
too.
chicken salad and all kinds of good looking stuff. But we had gone someplace else.
Yeah, so now
we had gone to Couch's Barbecue.
Deb also, when I say we took video, we were down at the edge of the track, and the cars coming by us 2 or 3 feet. So we really took some really close-up shots. And
Now wait a minute. Where was I standing?
You were standing down there. I was down there watching in case something happened to get you out of the way.
Ron was at least 10 feet away, standing on the grass. I'm standing
behind
up
the
against
concrete wall.
yeah, and I'm standing up against the gate with the cars whizzing by.
It's loud
I
down
just
there.
wanted to clarify that.
And dirt track racing means as the cars come by, they're throwing mud at you.
Yes.
And that hurts. And mud at you and dirt. And when I got out in my car, my cell phone was covered in red mud. And from inside my pocket, it was red. I go, and you know, this whole screen was just red here. You know, I'm showing people here in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'd like to thank Boyd Speedway. They're sort of our home track for our dirt track, and we're still needing items from dirt track racers, old pictures, old videos, 8mm films. We can get all that converted for you, get it back to you, and give you a copy of a DVD of your old films too. So make sure you do that. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Well, good.
We're so glad you're here.
Are
We
you-
had run into Sandra up at the showing of Caney Creek up at the First Baptist Church in Polk County. I
Soon as
kept
I-
wanting to say
Benton.
Parksville.
As soon as I heard,
Benton. Oh,
as soon as I heard
excuse me,
who she was, I said, "You got to come do our show. Just you,
Benton. So
you
we're
have
so
to
glad
come
to
do
have
that."
you here.
You know, we talk about all kind of history from this region here, and you know, one of the most iconic locations in what they call Appalachia is still the Webb store up there. And tell us a little bit about when that started and who all involved in it. Now, your grandmother started. Was it your grandmother or great grandmother?
No, well, my great grandmother
Started the
started
post
the
office.
first post office.
Yeah.
Yeah, my great grandparents moved to the farm in 1880. My grandfather put 3 small farms together for 690-acre farm.
Mhm.
It had an old grist mill on it right below the old store. I don't know exactly what year the old store building was built. I do know one of the builders was a guy called Possum Head Reimer. I don't know his.
Oh well, that's just worth it. Just I don't know anything about him, but just the name Possum Head is good enough.
I'd like to
I
see a
think
picture
I
of
have
him.
it written down somewhere. The name of the other guy.
Now,
There were-
what was their last names? Your great grandparents.
oh, Vaughn.
Vaughn. Yeah.
Joseph Dallas and Sarah Reed Vaughn.
Yeah.
Reed, she's kin to a lot of people that Clevelanders would know. Joyce Stratton, mother of Harold Allman's wife, Ruthanna Allman,
Oh yeah.
was a first cousin. Cora Reed Tilley was a first cousin to my great-grandmother, Sarah Reed. So there's a lot of connection to Cleveland.
Sure is.
So where did the family come from?
They came from over around Pikeville originally. I have great-great-grandparents. John Vaughn is buried up in the cemetery up in Pikeville, and his wife was a Wheeler. So we're kin to
Everybody.
a lot of people. Well, even here in Cleveland, I just found out a few years back at one of the Wheeler homecomings that Eddie Bott's mama and a bunch of those people are kin to the Wheeler connection. So
Now was when they got there, the bridge, the railroad bridge was there then, right? Or was it built later?
No, I
it's
think
built later, wasn't it?
Yes, I think.
Yeah.
I think the railroad bridge was built after they came. In 1880, there was a crossing down at what they called Crawford's Ford, around the mouth of Spring Creek, and the route was up the north side of the river, and the mail came out of Cog Hill, Tennessee, by horseback, carried in saddlebags on a horse, crossed the river at Crawford's Ford, then came up the south side of the river, and that's where my great-grandmother, Sarah Reed Vaughn, kept the mail in an old pine bureau that we still own. That was the first Reliance post office.
Well, now, what about the old? There's an old church right up. What is?
That was the Hiwassee Union Church originally, and then the Baptists pretty much predominated, so it was called the Hiwassee Union Baptist Church. They moved out up to their present location, I think in the 50s, the mid-50s.
So when was that
somewhere.
church there when they got there?
No,
It was like-
my great-grandfather donated that property, and once the church moved, it reverted back to us, so we actually own the church building.
Right. So so you guys were it. You were the first people
Well-
in the community basically then.
Well, my great-grandmother named the community,
Right.
so
So where did Reliance come from?
she was a big one for sayings, slogans, and Bible verses and things like that. And she just said it had a nice, solid sound. She just liked the name Reliance, and that's where she got the name.
Well, that's
Very
so,
nice.
well, was there any name for the community at that time, or just the crossing?
No, there
the
was.
Ford?
I think that there had been a name for a community on up the river a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember that right now. It slipped my mind. But there was not a post office or anything until she started that one.
Very interesting.
1880. But,
Beautiful place.
yeah. So that's they grow up and have start having children.
Actually,
when did the Webbs come into this family tree?
Well, okay. My Granny Webb was actually the only one of the Vaughn children that was born on the farm. I believe she was born in 1889. I have to look at.
That's
I've got
close
too
enough.
much genealogy.
Yeah.
Too many numbers.
Right. But she can remember while they were building Vaughn House, staying with her grandmother in a little building that was out behind our present store, a little house there. I remember the old chimney. They tore it down, in my lifetime.
Now the Vaughn house, if you're standing at the store going back towards 411, it's on the left up there. Is that right?
Right.
Still standing right there on the
big
bank.
old two-story Victorian
Yeah.
house.
God,
right
if I
there.
spent another day with Mama John.
I done did something.
Good-looking mama
Hang
make
on.
good-looking child now. Your mother must have been
If you touch that
Watch
button
your
right there at
elbow,
my
Ron.
elbow, we play music. You win the prize. The music plays. Go ahead.
I'm so
Sorry.
We were talking about the Vaughn house.
Okay, yeah. Granny remembers staying with her grandmother down in that little house that was behind our present store. And she said she was probably about 4 years old, and she can remember her grandmother slapping her leg. She was sleeping with her grandmother. And in the night, she was kicking the cover off, and she can remember grandmother slapping her leg and say, "Alice, quit kicking the cover off." So that's, she was actually born there on the farm. I guess possibly some of her older siblings may have even been married and, didn't actually move with the family. She was 13 years younger than her next sibling. So she was
So the railroad came through there, and of course it's on the north side of the river,
yes.
and it was going to Copper Hill
Yeah.
Yes.
from
Around the loop.
That's
Around
where
the
they
loop.
built the loop because
Gaining the altitude
Yeah.
up the mountain. Yeah.
and it's still one of the only loops. There are only 3 of those in the United States. I
And they've
understand.
recently gotten new box cars that you can ride in that have the windows on the top of it.
passenger cars. not
Passenger
bike
cars,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, the Tennessee Overhill owns that off the railroad.
Aren't you glad?
Yes, my brother's actually a member of the Tennessee Overhill Board. He's been on it since the beginning, and that's really a great thing
Oh, they've
that's
done a great
happened to
thing.
preserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too bad that we weren't able to preserve our old bridge, our 1912
Absolutely.
Yeah.
bridge.
Well, Mousy changed himself to it, didn't he?
Well, yes and no. That was the tail. Actually, he stayed out there till all of the reporters and everybody went home. Then he went home and went to bed. So the next morning early, they were out there with that wrecking ball. And I called and told him, I says, they're out here getting started. So he came up there and got back out on the bridge.
Well, I think about caught pneumonia out there, didn't he?
Well, it was pretty cold.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hate sometimes that we're so short-sighted that we can't be patient enough to save something like that. And what an iconic thing it was.
Well, I've been fortunate to travel in 22 countries, just brown bagging my lunch and taking vacations. And you see all of these pictures of glamorous-looking buildings and things in Europe. And when you get there, they're just old gray buildings. I mean, they're nothing like they look. But we had a piece of history right there that was interesting. And Garnet Chapin, who was the architect on the Walnut Street Bridge in Chattanooga, was working with us, trying to help us convert that into a walking bridge. We had visions of maybe horse and buggy rides across the bridge and around in the community. And it was a picture point. I brought some pictures that I showed Debbie earlier, but bridges have been a significant theme in our life, all of my life. We could tell you who of our neighbors was crossing the bridge when they hit the other end of the bridge just by the speed they were going and the way they hit that bridge. We knew who that was going to be when they came. Everybody kind of had a signature because those boards rattled, And anyway, lost my thought right there.
But it was really a shame, and I think we all felt that pain at that time. Now, what year would that have been?
The year it was taken down. It was in 1992. January the 25th, that was my dad's birthday, so that's how I remember the day. It was a Saturday, January the 25th.
And the state took it down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a 2,500-pound wrecking ball, and they had to hit that thing like 27 times before it even vibrated. Now, this was supposedly a dangerous bridge that was going to fall down. And, I mean, it didn't even move, and then finally it started to quiver just a little bit and went down. But they had already cut through the beams with a blowtorch and, all of that, and then had to hit it that many times to even...
Then basically, when they took the bridge down, I mean, sort of cut the two communities in half over there, didn't it?
Well, actually not, because they'd already built the new bridge.
Oh, they already built the new bridge.
Yeah,
okay.
and
yeah.
They had already diverted traffic across that new bridge, and the old bridge, according to the deed that my great-grandfather Joseph Dallas Vaughn had given for the building of the bridge, when it ceased to be a public conveyance, this was the way the deed was written, the property reverted to us. So, and our deeds call for half of the riverbed. We own half of the riverbed. That's the way the old water rights and things used to be written up. When that bridge, the traffic was diverted to the new bridge, then that property reverted to us. So we actually owned that first, maybe part of the second span. And the old mill run that came into the grist mill that was there below the store. In fact, if you go up there now, you'll see the old mill rocks and the gears and things out beside the present store.
Oh, okay.
But the old mill run was a fish weir that the Indians had put in, but it diverted the water to the shore. And when the grist mill was built, they used that water diversion that was already coming into the bank for the mill.
There's several of those fish weirs down Hiawassee, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah, look like there's a couple others down there.
Probably.
If people know what that is,
Sometimes they're
that's
either they were a fish weir that was turned into something for a grist mill, or they were a diversion for the grist mills. But you can see them in the Hiawassee River quite well.
The Indian would get in the river and sort of walk towards this and run the fish to that. And then there's a little outlet down there, and with a basket, the fish would swim through it and just catch it. So it's an ingenious way to catching fish.
Exactly, yeah. I've seen some of those little baskets that they used. Of course, it would have been woven with a lot of holes in it to let the water through, but it would trap the fish in there.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So when was that metal bridge built?
1912. It was an overhead suspension bridge. This is what confused people about it. When it shook, if you were driving across it, it would, give a little bit of vibration, not very much. But the weight was all on the top of the bridge, overhead suspension bridge. So whatever was rattling down there, the board planks or anything on the bottom had nothing to do with the stability of the bridge, really. I mean, it was not going to fall. And 40-ton trucks of logs would come across there, and it didn't move.
Who was the first whitewater rafting company in Polk County?
Okay, the first whitewater rafting company was started by Buck Sarton over in his site was over in Delano, operated on the Hiwassee, and he was getting so much business that he came to my dad and my uncle and he says, "You boys," which of course at that point they were like, how
70.
old they would have been. But he was of this, about their age too. But he says, "You all need to help me." He says, "I'm just getting overrun with business." So Daddy bought a bunch of these little old flimsy yellow rafts. Of course, he had no idea what to do about whitewater or how tough of equipment you needed or anything. But he bought some of those little yellow rafts, and my uncle took a bunch of old truck tubes and patched them up, and they started Webb Brothers Float Service, and that was 1969. Now, Buck Sarton eventually sold out and was out of business, so we're actually the oldest continuing whitewater business in the southeastern United States, not just in Polk County, because it hadn't started on the Ocoee, hadn't started in a lot of the other rivers.
Very
I
nice.
have come up and used your service many times.
yes, we
I love
have.
it. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. Deb, how you doing?
Hey,
Doing
good
great,
morning,
Bullet.
Bullet. What's up?
I just want to start out by saying I think your show is the best on the radio right now, Old Town Cleveland, and I enjoy it a lot.
Well, thank you.
Well, extra check in the mail for you.
And I want to ask, I appreciate it. I want to ask your guest, was she any kin to the Webbs that lived on Blue Springs Road, N.C. Webbs?
Not that I'm aware of. My Webb grandfather married my grandmother and came into the area. He was from actually up in up on the Cumberland Plateau, the Spring Creek community, close to Crossville and that area up in there.
Well, I've been up to your place a lot. I used to go to the fish hatchery up there a lot, and I got a friend who lives in Tellico, Michael Chris, and I usually go up through there about maybe once a week, and I like that country. It's pretty up through there.
Yes.
Very nice.
Like I said earlier, I've traveled in 22 countries, and I've never really seen anywhere any more beautiful or that I would rather live. Now, Hawaii ran a close second, and Hawaii tasted good. I mean, the food was really good.
Pineapple.
Yeah, well, when I was there, we had to eat 4 meals a day so we could just try all the specialties.
Just somebody had to do it, right?
Right.
I appreciate you, and then you just have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, Sandra brought in some beautiful, wonderful old family pictures, and one of them shows a sign about Maggie's Meal on the side of it. Tell us about that sign.
Yeah, the DAR put that sign on the end of our old garage that was torn down in the last couple of years or so. It gave directions up to Springtown, to the site of what we believe was really, no matter if Canada claims the site too, but the site of where the song, When You and I Were Young, Maggie, was written. My grandmother knew a Maggie Johnson. I think George Johnson was the one that wrote the song, and she actually knew the person called Maggie Johnson, and so we just really claim that is the original location of the Maggie Mill that the song was written about.
Very nice. That's over next to the fire hall there
Right.
at Spring Creek.
Right.
where we've
Yeah.
been.
Behind the fire hall.
Now, I know something. In the float business, something I just want to ask you this: that you hired a lot of Bradley High School wrestlers
That's
to work
right.
up there. Where did you ever get tied up with all the wrestlers?
You know, I don't know. My brother instigated that. I don't know who got him started on that route, but over the years he did hire
I
a
think
lot
the
of
last
them.
time we were up there, and I can't remember what I can see his face or can't think of his name. That one of the Bradley wrestlers waited on us when
And
we
so
were.
that he'd been invited, and that this had been kind of an ongoing thing. We
know.
really enjoy going down the Hiwassee.
Yeah, Brandon Forrester was one of them.
Yes,
Any
yeah.
others you can remember?
She probably can
Jake.
only remember the ones that would get in trouble.
Well, that'd be Brandon then. Yeah. Brandon's assistant coach now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brendan's also my chiropractor.
Oh well.
When I get a chance to go. Yeah,
So,
he's,
but yeah, I didn't know how that tie got with the Bradley wrestlers and all
it's
that.
gone on for so many years, and I've kind of forgotten.
Well, it's
who the
good.
first
Just
ones
sort of a
were,
unique
yeah.
thing.
Okay.
Jake West, I think.
Jake,
You remember
yeah,
Jake?
Jake. Oh, I know Jake,
and
yeah.
his brother.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Mr. Ron.
Hey, good morning.
Did you bring my tapes in today?
It's laying right here in front of Deb.
Now, he did not bring it in, but yes, your tape is here today.
Okay. It's my baby cousin, okay?
Yeah, everything's good. Come and see us.
I'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
She needed one of the Tennessee T-tapes. That's a band I played in for about 14 years, and she said she didn't have one, so we brought one of them. I had about a extra 200,000 or 300,000 in the basement. They didn't sell as good as we thought they were going to. You know, I always tell people I have a million cellar. I have a million of them in the cellar, and where they'll probably stay. But she's
I know the pictures that you showed us. There were little. There's a picture of a sign. It reminds me of the old sign on MASH where it's got the directions pointing to lots of different things there. Do you actually remember that sign?
Yes, I do. Yes, I.
And where all did it indicate you could get from Web Store?
You know, I can't
guess-
really remember, but I think maybe Knoxville and Chattanooga and, different
Springtown
places
maybe,
which were
yeah.
really far. No, I
It was
doubt
far
the
away places.
Far away places. Yeah.
It was
now,
really
who
cute.
put that up?
I don't know. I
It
presume
looked
that-
like an official.
Yeah, it was an official-
white and black. The little white signs with black writing on them.
Yeah.
So I would think
Yeah.
that
I
that
don't
was
remember
from the 1950s
no,
or 40s.
No.
earlier.
It was earlier than that. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
And
earlier than
painted
that.
signs, I'm sure.
So you can steal those signs.
No, let's not steal those signs. But that was really interesting. Now tell us about your uncle and his little cart that he got the mail in.
Oh yeah, my uncle was the first civil service tested postmaster in Reliance. Before that, there had been like political appointments.
Yes.
All the postmasters, but he was appointed postmaster in October of 1936. But he built a little two-wheel cart out of A model or T model wheels, whichever model, that he pushed from Von Webb House, which was where he lived, where my granny's ancestral home. He pushed it from there across the bridge to the railroad to meet the train twice a day to pick up the mail for $10 a month.
Big pay.
Big pay.
It's a really nice looking little wooden cart.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing fine, Brett.
Good.
What's going on?
Hey, I was going to let everybody know the Braves ended up winning last night.
What was the final score?
It was 6-4.
Well, good. And they played today?
The what?
They played today?
Yeah.
What time?
4 o'clock. 4:05 today.
Okay. How's the Cubs doing this year?
They ended up winning last night.
The Cubs win so well. Mark, so that's about, 3 times this year the Cubs have won?
Hey, it pushes our standing up to 5 games, Ron.
5 games out or 5 games above?
No, 5 games up.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Hey, I'm going to a Brave game.
No, when you going?
The 13th.
Oh, well, who you going to see? Who's playing?
It's the Braves and against San Diego.
That'd be pretty good. The Padres coming into town.
13th
The 13th. All right.
February.
All right. February, you mean of August?
No, February. After August is come
September.
September.
Yeah.
September 13th.
They don't play in February. That's too cold.
I have to miss one of these the football games.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, we'll excuse you this one time.
Hey, I'm gonna be at the first game, Ron.
At Radley and Polk County's playing.
Yeah, the first game.
At Polk County?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there the 23rd and at home.
I'll be there too. All right.
The two games for me.
Well, football's about to get here. Hey, thanks, Brett.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Speaking of baseball, I think here in a few weeks, Ron's going to have about a few million baseball cards for sale, so everybody stand by for that.
I've been cleaning out my baseball card collection, and it's huge. It's
It
huge.
kind of got carried away at some point in time. He's going to have to.
If you like the 80s, I've got baseball cards
80s
for you.
and
brand
early
new ones
90s.
that have never been opened. They're just lined up.
So that's down there in the cellar with all those tapes.
With the tapes, yes. And if you'll buy all the baseball cards, you get a free Tennessee TT. Matter of fact, you get 6 or 7 if you buy all of them. Very good. Now, your dad was what? Tell me your dad's name.
My dad was Harold.
Harold.
Yeah, my uncle was Oliver, and they were 18 months apart.
Who was it that sat outside in that old office chair?
The old green chair, wasn't it? Oliver?
Well, Oliver sat there in the front of the store in that chair.
That's who I was talking about. I just know that there was always some guy sitting outside there.
My dad was the smaller one that wore the Texaco cap, and my uncle was the one that grew the long gray beard, and kids thought he was Santa Claus.
Yeah.
They'd come in and, just kind of shy away from him, looking like, what's Santa Claus doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's everybody talks about him sitting out front there in that chair.
Well, actually, that may have been my dad, because Uncle Oliver more or less was right inside the front door, just on the right as you walk
Now,
in.
can you share with us the story about the robbery?
Back in the mid-'50s, yeah, we had a hold-up. It was cold weather. I think it was in January, and there was ice on the ground. And one Saturday night, my mother and my brother and sister and I were sitting on the couch studying our Sunday school lesson. Daddy was in the shower taking his Saturday night bath, I guess. And all of a sudden, my uncle, who was working in the store, and this was pretty late at night, started hollering, "Harold, Harold." And we kind of had the habit of being rude like that. If we needed a price check or something, you just yelled, to see who knew whatever it was you needed to know. So Mother jumped up and went through the double doors from the residence back in the back of the store, and she saw my uncle standing at the cooler with his gun drawn on a couple of guys, had their hands up on the post office wall. So Uncle Oliver says, "Get Harold out here," to get the others out of the car. So Mama went to the bathroom, and she says, "I don't know what's going on, but Oliver's got a gun on 2 guys in there." And so Daddy jumped out of the tub, and he wore overalls. He didn't even dry off. He just jumped in his overalls and hooked one gallus and ran to the door to see what was going on. So Uncle Oliver says, "Get your gun, Harold. Go out there and get the rest of them out of the car." The car was sitting between the store and the gas pump, still running with the lights on and everything. So Daddy didn't know who he was going to confront or what. So he finished getting dressed a little bit, got his shoes on, and went to the closet and got his shotgun out. He already had his pistol.
Hold that right there. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The veterans at the Peerless Road Market.
Yeah.
And the thing that I remember about Webb's store was the hook cheese, the crackers, and the little bitty coats.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're making me hungry.
I've been there, done that.
Been there, done that.
I've been there, done that. I've eaten some hook cheese up there.
Well, they're still open. You can go any-time now.
Yeah. Now, what years was that you were buying hoop cheese?
That was years ago, honey. I'm 82 now.
Well, okay, so you were in the old store, the original store?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you did indeed buy Hoop cheese. A lot of people think that they've bought Hoop cheese since the 1950s, but when we moved into the new store in 1956, what we've sold since that is a Longhorn Kobe cheese. We didn't have the big old round cutter that the big round Hoop cheese had to sit on like we did in the old store.
Yeah, I've been in there and had them to slice it and get me a Coke and a box of crackers, and I was happy as a bird in a nest.
You know those little bottled Cokes, my granny had to drink one of those every day, but she would look at, on the bottom of the Coke it would tell you the bottling company had the name printed on it, and if it didn't come from Etowah, she would check on everyone in the cooler till she found one that had Etowah, because she said the others didn't taste as good.
They was always precious and great to me when I was there. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget,
Bye-bye.
don't forget to go out to the Peerless Road Market there and
Okay, let's finish our story. So, your dad's coming out with his shotgun.
Yeah, he already had his little pistol in his pocket, in his overall pocket, which, pretty much that was standard wear. You just carried it in your pocket all the time.
Yeah.
Well, he went out the side door instead of the front door of the store, and the person that was in the car, or the driver that was in the car, realized something had gone wrong, and they started to pull out, and they pulled around the pumps and headed up the road about where the driveway to behind the store goes now, if you go down to the landing on that driveway. And they were spinning on the ice. But as they started up the road, Daddy dropped down on one knee and shot that shotgun and blew one of the back tires out. And he didn't even hit it didn't hit the car, just blew the tire out. Daddy was a coon hunter, so he was a pretty good shot. And the car stopped and started backing up. So he thought, I'm going to have a shootout with whoever's in there. So he got over behind the old truck and put his shotgun up there and leveled it on the car door. He thought, well, if they start to get out to shooting, I'm going to shoot first. And he meant to shoot the person when they got out of the car. But the driver opened the door and was fumbling around under the seat, and he thought they were hunting a gun, so still intended to shoot him. As it turned out, it was a 15-year-old girl from Chattanooga, and she was hunting her shoes. She was barefoot in that car, so with ice on the ground, she's hunting her shoes to put on. And so when he realized that it wasn't somebody coming out shooting, he made her come in the store and line up with the boys. It was a 17-year-old boy from up in the basin, a 25-year-old boy, man from up there, and this 15-year-old girl from Chattanooga. And by the way, her dad worked for the post office in Chattanooga, but she'd been out with those guys, and they'd had her across the state lines down to Alabama and Georgia and back and forth. And I don't know if they were charged, but they could have been charged with white slavery with her underage like that. But she'd been gone from home.
Now, was it a bigger charge because they were robbing a United States post office?
Well, it wasn't really the post office; it was the store they were robbing.
But it's all combined there, isn't
well,
it?
What happened was the boys came in and they got $8 and something worth of picnic things like cheese and bread and stuff, and the 25-year-old made sure he wasn't the one with the gun. He was kind of rambling around looking in the back of the store, and the 17-year-old had the little old .22 pistol. So when Uncle Oliver got their bill totaled up, he told them how much, and the boy says, "I'll take your money too." Well, when Uncle Oliver closed up in the post office every night, he tucked a .45 down in his belt. And he wore his shirt open, or his jacket, winter and summer, because he really kind of outgrew his clothes. And so his jacket was open enough, and that gun was hidden back in there. But he kind of looked up out of the top of his eyes, and he saw the kid standing there with the gun on him. And he says, how's that? And the kid repeated, he says, "I'll take your money too." And Uncle Oliver says, "Oh, well." So he turns around with his left hand instead of his right. Of course, we had the old-fashioned cash register. You had to pull the handle down to get in, open the drawer, whatever. So he opened it with his left hand, reached with his right hand down in his belt, and came out with that .45. And he meant to come out shooting too. But when that kid with the little 22 with a hole about big as your little finger saw that 45, it looked like a
Shotgun
a
barrel.
baseball bat or something.
Yeah.
He kind of flinched, and Uncle Oliver thought, well, maybe I don't have a hardened criminal here. So he says, drop it or I'll shoot. And the kid just froze. I mean, he was just paralyzed. And Uncle Oliver says, drop it or I'll shoot. He had to tell him 3 times, and finally the kid turned it down and laid it down on the cooler. Now, Uncle Oliver knew that if he pulled the trigger and that kid standing there with a gun, he was going to get shot by reflex action. But people that know him and the kids that work for him in the hayfield and everything know he was a pretty tough dude. He held that 45 like it was in a vice grip. I mean, it didn't waver. It takes me 2 hands to hold a 45. But he held that thing, and the kid knew that he'd get blasted away. So he dropped the gun.
So how did the police get there?
Well, we didn't even have telephones. We had to go about 2 miles over to a neighbor's house to call. The Public Service Commission had to finally force a telephone company to run the lines up. They had come over as far as they could from the exchange and still get service coming through Greasy Creek, and it was about 2 miles over to one of our neighbors. And Mama and I were going to go over to call the sheriff, and she was so nervous. She was spinning on the ice, too. I had to calm her down. I didn't have my license yet. I was, about 15, I guess, or so, just prior to being able to get my license. But I had to calm her down, tell her to back off and slow down a little bit. Don't try to start so fast.
Do you remember who the sheriff was then?
Whitey Ramsey.
Whitey was a sheriff a long time over there, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Off and on. Yeah. Okay.
Very
Gosh.
interesting.
I thought you was going to tell me it was
one
of the bigs, or maybe.
I think it was. I believe it was Whitey. Would have been.
Probably
he was a few
at the
years
beginning.
older than me, so he was already out of school, and I think he was the sheriff at that point. But anyway, it took them probably a couple of hours or so after we called before they finally got up there, and Uncle Oliver made the kids stand up there with their hands on the wall. They kept begging to, of course, the circulation, your blood runs out of your arms after a while, but they'd want to put their hands down, and he'd say, turn around and shut up, and he'd make them stand there.
Well, I would too. Another, let's get this call.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
This is Peggy.
Hey, Peggy. How are you?
Hi, Ron.
Hey, when's your birthday?
Thursday tomorrow.
And you?
Last night.
Oh, you didn't get drunk, did you?
I didn't even drink a beer. I swear. Those colored girls seen me dancing. They said, "Look at her. She ain't even drinking a beer." The 13th of August.
So how old are you?
I'll be 75.
I was going to ask you how old your twin sister was. It might be better.
Well, you could have. I don't mind it. They all know I got a twin anyway.
So what are you going to do on your birthday?
I'm coming to Pokey's. Well, that's my favorite place. You know that.
That's right.
But guess what happened last night?
What happened?
I lost my other cell phone. Now I'm back to my old one. I left it in the ladies' restroom and somebody kept it. But guess what?
You left it in the men's restroom?
The ladies' restroom.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you there.
Yeah. But I had the minutes put back on this phone, so they can't use that. And it'll have an unregistered SIM and my name and everything, so they can't use it.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for calling, and happy birthday to you.
In August. Bye, Miss Ella.
All right, bye-bye.
Oh. Miss Ella makes me laugh.
I misunderstood her there that time, didn't I? Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Doug.
I want to tell you something about Sandra and Harold, too.
Uh-oh. Who is this?
Doug Guerin.
Uh-huh. Okay, you're the one that made the leather sign that we did have hanging. I don't know if it's still hanging down there or not.
Yes, ma'am, I did. And I made the leather strap for you to go to all those countries.
Exactly. And somebody stole one off my suitcase on one of those trips. He made me some real heavy leather belts, I call them, to go around my luggage because I've had some bad luck sometimes with a zipper breaking or something and about to lose your stuff while you were gone.
Well, when I first got out of college and I got into making leather belts and stuff, I made a whole bunch up, and I was real proud of them. They looked good. And I thought, well, where am I going to sell them? I don't have any way to market them. So I thought about Webb Store. All the young people come from Baylor and McCallie, Intertubing. They've all got money in their pockets. So I drove up there, and somebody in the store told me Harold was down on the fence row, cleaning the fence row. So I drove down there and just parked in the middle of the road and asked him permission if I could sell my leather stuff up there. And he said, well, sure. And as usual, Harold liked to talk about his medical condition, ailments and stuff. And
now, that was my dad, Harold.
yes. And he said, I'm hurting pretty bad right now. I've run out of these medication. My doctor had me on these Quaaludes, he said. I just about died laughing because that was the drug of choice back then for all the hippies and stuff. And pretty potent stuff, a Quaalude is. But anyway, so I sat up there that weekend and straight across from the store by the old millstone, and I got a pine pole and put nails in it and hung on my belts across there, and I sold several of them. You know, that just really tickled me to death to make some money like that. And that was the first place I marketed my leather work, and I really appreciated Harold letting me do that. And another thing about Harold was he wouldn't think twice about picking up the phone and calling the President of the United States and giving him a piece of his mind, or calling, I know he told me one time, he either called or wrote Khrushchev.
Yeah, he did.
And that's really amazing. He would do that. He wouldn't, you know.
This was when the pilot, Gary Powers, went down over there, and, you know, they were holding him.
The U-2 spy plane.
Yeah. And, yeah, Daddy wrote Khrushchev and gave him his opinion about that.
Really amazing. I always admired him for doing that. And he told me one of his hardest challenges was to get Bell South to put a telephone in up there, a payphone.
Yeah.
Because all the young rafters and stuff wanted to come in the house and use your house phone, and that got to be a pain. So finally, I mean, he had a really hard time, but finally they put a payphone there beside the front of the store. And about you now, here's what I remember. I was over on the up behind Caney Creek Settlement, hiking all back in those mountains and really working up an appetite. I mean, I was really doing some strenuous hiking, and I was with some friends, and we ran into two old guys back there, and they were hunters, and they invited us to a wild game cookout over there, kind of in the Greasy Creek community.
At Rob's Grocery.
Yeah. And so we go over there, and they come out crawling out from under a car. They've got grease from their toes to the top of their hair, just covered in grease. But they had a tarpaulin set up because it was kind of drizzling rain, and they had bear, venison, and boar. And I'd never eaten any of those, and the bear was real greasy, but I was really hungry, so I was starving. And you came over with some, I can't pronounce it, au gratin potatoes.
Au gratin potatoes.
Yeah.
Ill-gotten potatoes, is that what you said?
Old rotten potatoes, what he said, wasn't it?
It was a potato casserole. Yeah, just dishes to go with the meat.
It tasted so good. I mean, it's all I could do to make myself not eat the whole casserole. I mean,
yeah,
it was delicious.
The hunters up there would clean out their freezers and do that game every year before they needed to put the fresh stuff in. And the ladies around in the communities would make dishes and desserts and things to go with it. And anybody could come eat. We liked bear. My granny loved bear. And a lot of times maybe some of the hunters would bring her a bear roast or something, and Mom would cook it up.
They put a chart up, like a poster, and had the bear and the sex of the bear and the weight of the bear. And they had killed over 20-something bears there. I was amazed how many bears they'd taken out of the mountains that season.
You know, right close to that site where Rob's Grocery was at that time, where you came, a bear tried to break into the back door of Miss Martha Reimer. Hearst Reimer's widow, and that's part of the Magic Chef Reimer connection. Brad Reimer that was started Magic Chef before it was Magic Chef. Anyway, just that was a few years back. We were in the post office one morning working the mail, and my Route 1 carrier, the Greasy Creek carrier, got a call, and they said that there's a bear trying to break in the back door of Miss Martha's house and wanted to know where her dad was to come shoot it. And so she called her dad to go over there. But what had been happening, Miss Martha thought it was a stray dog, and she'd been putting out bacon grease for it. So I guess that morning she hadn't put out any bacon grease, and it was ready for breakfast, so it was trying to break in the back door.
Yeah, well, that day I came over there and ate that food and your potatoes, I was hungry as a bear.
And he'd break down the door if you don't give it to him.
Yeah.
That food really tastes too good. Well, I'm going to hang up. I'll be calling back. I'm going to say my best story for the end. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Do you remember Dave Reimer? In our Caney Creek video, Mrs. Trotter says the bus driver's name was Dave Reimer.
Yeah, Dave Reimer's daughter, Pauline, was my uncle's wife for a short time. They had one daughter, lives in Nashville now. Yep.
Yeah,
And is his daughter still alive?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I looked through all the census records, and that's all I had was a name, and I never could find
and we
him.
never could find a picture of him, too.
Yeah.
We looked for a picture of him.
We would like to have had a picture of him to put there in the documentary. But
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Is that the Webb's daughter?
it is. This is Sandra.
I remember her mother and daddy courting.
Courtney. Who is this?
I'm Peggy McLean, and I went to North Cleveland Church of God.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my Dad and Mama attended North Cleveland before they were ever married. In fact, my mom was engaged to Marshall Robertson back before he and Mary married. And his mom had Mary picked out to be her daughter-in-law, so she called Mama the old maid Wales girl. And
The Wales girl. She's the prettiest Wales in the bunch.
She
Walker, Irene Wales.
Yeah, ain't Irene never married.
All of them. I knew them all.
Right.
Church with all of them. And your daddy come with little man with a big, big hat.
Yeah, he always had a hat.
And
Well,
a big car and a big hat.
yeah, he always had a car. So, yeah.
And the cabins that used to be down there was a Watson cabin. And we used to come.
Was that down at Hiwassee Beach?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really remember when people used to come down to the cabins. One of the cabins was still there, and a white family lived in that cabin back, in my early memory. The store and all of the other stuff that was down there was way gone before my time.
Well, I was a little girl at North Cleveland Church of God when your mom was courting. I'm 79 now.
Okay, now you're Lloyd's?
What?
Are you Lloyd's daughter?
No.
No, which one?
I married a McLean.
Oh, you married a McLean. Okay. So who were you?
I was a Harmon.
Peggy Harmon.
Tore him up on the corner first. And then Dr. D.B. Yao built North Cleveland Church of God in 1939.
Yeah.
And then we started going there. And then in 72, T.L. Larry built the one on the corner. And the new one was built by Mitch Maloney.
Right.
So,
yeah, I still go to church at North Cleveland.
Well.
Yeah, that's where I've raised my daughters.
Well, I knew your mother didn't bring you out when you were little, though.
Well, yeah, she did, but they didn't come a lot because it was quite a journey down here. It's still about a 45-minute drive from Reliance. But Dad and my uncle got every other Sunday off, so we mostly came on Sunday nights, and particularly, before my grandmother Wells died. I was like 4 years old when grandmother Wells died. But when they moved, my mama's family moved from Louisiana to Tennessee in the mid-30s, and she and her twin went their last 2 years to Bradley, graduated from Bradley in 1936. They moved to the second house from the corner right there in front of the old original church that you said Brother Yao built.
Mm-hmm. Walker.
On Walker Street, yeah. And then eventually they bought the big house with the wraparound porch on the other end where the School of Theology is now.
Yeah, next to 8th Street, right on the corner.
Yeah, right.
And you had an uncle or aunt that married a Lemons.
Yeah, Ruth and Bill Lemons. And he worked at Velvo Flour and also, was it the Big Apple Grocery or whatever it was downtown?
Yeah, Big Apple.
Yeah.
Your Uncle Webb married Edith Campbell, my English teacher at Bradley.
Uh-huh.
And they had one daughter, so you have one cousin by him.
Right. Yeah, that's the only Webb cousin.
First cousin.
Who?
Her sister, Sue.
Uh-huh.
Watson, and she took her and raised her when her mother died.
Right.
And they were living in California when my first cousin, Captain Jimmy Watson, was in the Marines, and he fell in a helicopter and died.
Yes.
That was February of 75. So.
Well, thank you so much for your call, and you have really stirred some memories up over here for Sandra.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being a listener. I love our callers. I love our callers.
You never know how things are going to go.
Right. It's just, you just kind of have to hang on here. Another photograph or two that you had in that wonderful collection were of some giant, enormous pumpkins, and we'll talk about that after this call. We can't afford somebody to answer the phone, so we just have to go straight.
Good morning, live on. Well, let's see if we can try it again here. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello.
Hello.
I remember we would stop at Webb's store, my father and I, and usually my uncle was along. A lot of times we were going on over into Tellico to grouse hunt, and we'd get something there to eat for lunch. Usually Mother would fix us lunch, but occasionally we would stop there and she'd fix a bite. Mother would fix a bag lunch, but occasionally we'd stop there and get something to eat. And I think I remember out to the side an old drive-on too grease rack where they could change oil, get under a car, and so forth.
Now you're talking about the old store, or the present store?
Maybe. Well, this has been back.
How old are you?
I'm 63. This is Neil. I'm Rube Allen's son.
Yeah, Reba and Reba graduated from high school with Mama and her twin. They were two twins at Bradley in 1936.
Right. This would have been back in it could have been the late 50s on into the 60s, and then. Okay,
you're probably talking about the present store. We moved in it when I was a freshman in high school. That would have been about 1956, 57.
Yeah.
So the grease rack there, was the kind that you drive on, just a two-track thing. The one at the old store was just a wooden rack, and there was a gap between it and the store building, and we used to pour our bottle caps down there under the store.
Yeah.
When it emptied the caps off of the coolers.
Boy, imagine going metal detecting there.
Just out of curiosity, I remember, and this was that's probably up into the 80s, maybe early 90s. I would see the little garage that was directly across the road there, and you could see just the front end of a 51 Ford in there. I was just curious as to whatever happened to that car.
Okay, that was auctioned off about, let's see, probably 12 years ago or so, in an auction.
Yeah, I was just curious. I used to see it sitting there.
The old Diamond T tractor and the lowboy trailer and the 51 Ford and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, always enjoyed stopping in there. Like I say, we'd get something to carry with us for lunch. We were going hunting sometimes, and there's lots of things to look at in there too. I mean, it was
Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff to look at. We've got the old baskets that were made by Will Hicks, and he was of Indian descent.
Yeah.
And those were on display up at McClung Museum a number of years back in an Indian basket display. So we've got all kinds of artifacts. In fact, at one point, now my brother's cleaned all this stuff up, but there was a spider web over on top of one of the shelves over against the wall around my uncle's milk bucket, and we just left it there because that kind of added to all the other artifacts that were in there on display.
I do that at my house. I leave the spider web so it can be artifacts.
Well, I'm enjoying the show as usual. I don't always call, but I always listen.
All right.
Thank you, Neil. Good talking to you.
Bye-bye.
I hope your mother's listening.
Probably not, but
We'll go on the internet and let her.
she doesn't have internet access and so forth.
Well,
But
Martha
you tell
Lee
her.
does.
You
so-
tell her Sandra said hello.
I will.
All righty, Neil. Bye-bye. Neil's helping us on our dirt track documentary. He hasn't got to help us much yet, but he's going to be a big help to us later on. I think the boy has motor oil in his veins.
Yeah. See, one thing I didn't mention when talking to Neil, mentioned the fact that she and Reba graduated with Mama named Edith, but I worked with Reba at the Forest Service for a number of years. We worked in personnel down here in the Cleveland office for about 7 years before I transferred home to the post office.
There you go.
All right,
She's a
folks.
lovely lady.
We need to take a break here, do our morning break, and we'll be back in a few minutes here on Old Town Cleveland.
WOOP LP, Cleveland, Tennessee.
Debbie Moore, co-host of Whoops Old Town Cleveland, has released a regional history book, Confederate Voices. The book is available at the Red Ribbon, the Museum Center at 5 Points, and at www.oldtowncleveland.com. And be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 for Old Town Cleveland, right here on Whoop FM. The Village Bake Shop has been serving the sweet needs of folks in the area since 1961. Need a specialty cake? Well, all you need is a photo or just an idea, and Teresa at the Village Bake Shop will make sure you get that special cake for any occasion. I've enjoyed the Village Bake Shop for years and always got birthday cakes, wedding cakes, and more. Any cake for any special occasion from the Village Bake Shop is always fresh and delicious. And of course, the Village Bake Shop has all your other sweet cravings taken care of too. Plus their world-famous thumbprint cookies that are shipped all over the world. The Village Bake Shop, Village Green Town Center, right here in Cleveland. Phone 476-5179.
Check into cash. We'll beat any rates that don't pay the match.
Check into Cash gives you more money for your title and the lowest title loan rate anywhere. We'll beat any rate on a title loan, and we guarantee it. So you'll save money. If you already have a title loan, ask Check into Cash about paying it off. So if you're short on cash, think Check into Cash.
No credit check, no runaround. Check into Cash won't slow you down.
Check into Cash, your one-stop money shop for 20 years. Now offering payday loans without a check. Great service, convenience, and locations.
Check into Cash. We'll beat any rates that don't pay the max. Oh, yeah. Check into Cash is your money machine. Get on up and get down. Check into Cash.
Bring proof of lower rate on similar title loan. Use payday advances responsibly. Visit checkintocash.com for the store nearest you. Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750.
Mermaid Mattress wants to say thank you, Cleveland, for once again voting them the #1 bedding store in Cleveland Daily Banner's Reader's Choice Awards. Buy any full-size mattress set and get a $500 wooden headboard, footboard, and wood side rails for only $99. Or, while they last, close out fabric queen-size mattresses for only $99. But hurry while supplies last. Mermaid Mattress, your hometown mattress factory, located right here in Cleveland, Tennessee on Georgetown Road. Call them at 472-2486 for more information. Go see them now on Georgetown Road. Mermaid Mattress, 472-2486.
Mermaid Mattress Factory and Showroom.
Kiesler Incorporated is in the business of recycling your metal, and they pay cash. The only covered scrapyard around where you can recycle rain or shine. They're located off the bypass on Overhead Bridge Road. Automobiles, appliances, copper, stainless steel, tin, all metals can be recycled at Kiesler, and you can walk away with cash. That's right, they pay cash, and they are the friendliest scrapyard in the Southeast. If you have unwanted metal just laying around, bring it to Kiesler Recycling today and walk away with cash. Kiesler Recycling open Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 5, or call for more details, 614-3000.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall.
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here in the studio at 614-5553. We're talking about Web Store and Reliance with Sandra Webb Hyder. And we're back, and Debbie's going to ask her about pumpkins.
Yeah, Sandra's my kind of guest. She told us 16 stories in a 3-minute break. So.
All right.
In her old family pictures, she has wonderful pumpkin pictures. Who grew those?
My Uncle Oliver grew those. In the cornfield, that was the days before you sprayed the corn. Of course, after you started spraying them, the pumpkins would get killed along with the grass and weeds.
Yeah.
Let's go get this call, and then we'll go
Good
back to
morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Mr. Ed, what's up?
Well, we had a little meeting, got our reunion straightened out for this year for Tavina. I'd like to put that on there if I could.
Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, it'll be the same place it was last year at the Kinser Church Pavilion. They come up with a wise idea. We want to look like Hawaiians this year.
Are you wearing your grass skirt, Ed?
I'm going to wear my grass skirt. Everybody else put theirs on. And finger food is a call of the day, just like always. And the date is September 28th, 1 o'clock.
All righty, sir. You got the word out. And if somebody wants to help you out on that or needs some more information, who can they call?
Call me at 614-7526. And if anybody listening, we're trying to call these personally, all of them that's attended, and we've got a phone number for them. We're trying to call them, so just give us a call if you can. Kind of help us out on this, because it's getting to be a long, drawn-out situation, doing a lot of phone calling. But anyway, appreciate it, and yeah.
Thank you, Ed.
Big turnout this year.
All righty, but thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
But some of the pictures, Ron didn't have the opportunity. He was talking to P-Dab, didn't get to look at the pictures. Some of them the pumpkins weighed over 100 pounds.
Yeah, we had one, and this was naturally grown, and now, they're raising some pumpkins, and people feed them and this and that, and raise several hundred pounds. But this one weighed 108 pounds. And it was on display in Parks Belk Fall Window. I think my uncle won maybe $20 prize or something for having the biggest pumpkin. But it was just, as they were gathering the pumpkins, they ran across this in the field. And we have a picture of it with my brother, Harold Jr., standing beside it outside the old store, the entrance to the old post office. And he was probably about 2 years old, and the pumpkin is taller than he is. And there's a little 1 or 2 pound pumpkin sitting on the top of it just to give a comparison to the size. And
there are also massive piles of just regular sized pumpkins.
He raised about 40 to 60 tons of pumpkins every year.
And just sold them there at the store mostly? Or?
For a penny a pound. I think maybe the last few years he might have gone up to 2 cents a pound. You weighed them up on the old scales he had sitting there. Everybody came for their jack-o'-lanterns. And
I would
If
like
you got
to have
$1 a pound, you've been rich, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be-
Well, if he could have sold them like they sell them now, those things are not even worth making a pie out of.
No.
These seeds probably came from the Indians. It was heirloom seeds of some sort. And you never knew, out of one pumpkin, when you planted those, you might get several different types of pumpkins when they came up. You might get the round wagon wheel, what a lot of people call a pie pumpkin, or you might get those old knobby green ones, which was the choice that we would make. My great aunt taught me that those old, really knobby, rough-looking ones had the deepest orange flesh and the sweetest taste to them. They were the best pumpkins to make your pies out of. My mama could make a pumpkin pie that just melted in your mouth.
Boy, that just sounds so good.
So all of his seeds, you think, were heirloom seeds?
Oh, yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I'm sure they probably got them from the
Now,
Indians. You know-
they still did a lot of farming even with the store going, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, see, Daddy and Uncle Oliver started in store business in 1936, May of 1936. Roy Stillwell had leased the store from my great uncle Thomas Vaughn, and they terminated his lease. Daddy threatened, he wanted to go to pharmacy school, but it was right during and after the Depression, and so he didn't feel like he could afford to go to school. So he says, I'm going to leave and go somewhere where I can get me a job. There's no jobs around here. He says the only alternative, if I could start a business, So they terminated Roy's lease, and Daddy borrowed $500 and stocked
Which
the
was a lot of
shelves.
money in 1936.
Well, it was, but it still didn't buy very much to stock the shelves. And my Granny and Papa Webb had been married and divorced twice over the years.
To each other?
To each other.
Okay.
They divorced the first time when Daddy and Uncle Albert were about 2 and 3 years old, and then they remarried when Daddy was Uncle Oliver were in their mid-30s. But Papa told me one time, he says, I love your Granny, but we just can't live together. We just can't get along. They were both babies of the family, spoiled rotten, and after they were divorced the first time and she had raised the boys all those years, she was a pretty independent woman for the time, so she didn't take bossing around a whole lot. So
what all did they grow?
On the farm?
Yeah.
Mostly just hay, corn, pumpkins, and cattle.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have horse stock too, mules and stuff. And of course oxen. My uncle, as a kid, drove oxen. They told a tale about him sitting on a sled behind an ox he was trying to break, and it was running away with him down the riverbank, and he was so stubborn he wouldn't let go, going under all those bushes and things down the riverbank. He could have gotten his neck broken, but he wouldn't let go and jump off of that sled.
Now, your dad opened up the store in 1936, so was he able to open it with that $500 worth of stock?
Well, he was, but Papa Webb was so embarrassed by what little bit of stock they had on the shelves. He told him, he says, you go to the bank and, borrow some more. And he helped him to get started. But, evidently he was able to do okay, because here, this many years, what is that, 36?
That's a lot of years.
70?
80?
I think we've celebrated the 75th year. Would that have been last year, maybe? Or I have to have a pencil and paper to do math.
I'm over here doing it.
So now, was it a success right at the beginning, or there
was nothing else there. And see, people didn't have transportation back in those days. Each little community had a little store, and the communities were like 4 or 5 miles apart. And you had to walk. Or the old mail carrier would bring stuff out. Like some of the customers would send a little note, and he'd say, Miss Annie Hicks needs a box of crackers and a can of sweet snuff and whatever. And he'd take them out and leave it for them, you know. Our daddy would deliver.
Mhm.
I remember one time we were delivering to a family, Leland Hicks's family, that lived across Spring Creek. Y'all, most of the people that's been in that area are familiar with Spring Creek, which is a pretty big watershed all the way out of Monroe County. And the road would shift in the spring rains, where what you thought was the place to drive across might not be the same place to drive across the next time. Daddy was going across in an old 42 Chevrolet. I was standing up in the back seat. I was probably maybe 4 years old. And the car drowned out in the creek. And he had to carry me out of the creek. And, of course, no telephones or anything. But I can't remember. I think he probably left me with Hole Merrill's family, who lived up above the creek. And then he had to walk all the way up to the store and get Uncle Oliver to come down with the tractor to pull him out of the creek.
Mm-mm. It's just hard to imagine, I mean, how hard people had to work just to live.
Yeah, it's got to be just unbelievable to get up in the morning and work there, and the beautiful views of the river, and and just the fog coming across it. Just a beautiful place.
Talking about hard to make a living. Even though Daddy didn't believe in drinking alcohol, he never condemned the people, because a lot of times the easiest way to convert their corn and do something they could make some money on
cash,
was to make moonshine. And I can remember as a kid, a guy from up in Monroe County, Hesley Freeman was his name. I can remember him pulling up in front of the store, and Daddy was standing in the door. The old store had 3 doors across the front. As you were looking at the front, the right door went into the section of the store that was the post office, even though it was all open on the inside. But if you go in just to the post office, that would be the closest door. Then the middle door, and then the stockroom door. But anyway, Daddy was standing in the post office door, and Hesley yelled at him, says, "Harold, you got any fruit jars?" And the revenuers were in the store eating lunch. They'd come in there and, get sardines and bologna and stuff and stand around at the counter and eat their lunch. So Daddy didn't answer him. He just stepped over to the truck and he says, "The feds are inside." So Hesley says real loud again, he says, "My wife's wanting to can some blackberries."
Just to cover it up.
Well,
right there.
that's the way they put off their runs.
You
Usually if it was canning season.
Well, you can make moonshine out of blackberries. If it'll ferment, you can make it. That's right.
Well, but they weren't making it out of blackberries.
I love it.
Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
It's me again.
All right.
Hey, Doug.
I wanted to ask Sandra this. I've always been scared to call Mousy Mousy. Is he offended by that, or does he prefer?
Well, I tell you, that name came when he was like first grade or something. Some of the bigger boys in school, I think Kendall Adams and some of the other guys up there around Reliance, he would go by the cash register on his way to the school bus in the mornings and fill his pockets full of change to buy his ice cream and stuff. And those big boys would turn him upside down and shake him and get the money out that fell out of his pockets. But they said he just slipped around like a little mouse. He was just real quiet and shy and very tiny, and that's where the nickname Mousy came from. And a lot of the kids that he went to school with, that's all they ever call him. Now, Thurman Parrish, I don't know if any of y'all have read his old time.
Oh, yeah. His books are wonderful.
His books. Thurman and I went all the way through school together, graduated in Polk County. But he said that Mama, one time he was calling Harold Mousy, and he says, Miss Neva says, "Don't call him that. His name is Joseph Harold." And he says, "I never called him that again out of respect to her." But most of the kids that went to school with him remember him as Mousy.
But now, does people still call him Mousy?
Oh, yeah. Now, after he went up to UT, even though we had always called him Joseph Harold, because Daddy was Harold, And he didn't want to be called Joe. He said that sounded like Joe's Beanery or something, so he never would let us call him Joe. But he started going by Harold after he went up to UT. And pretty much the people that have known him in later years call him Harold.
Okay. Well, from this day forward, I'm going to call him Harold.
There you go. I believe he's the fellow that took us up rafting the last time we went, and he was eating a sandwich, and he had a candy bar in one hand and a sandwich in the other hand, and was balancing a canned drink between his knees and turned around backwards talking to us all at the same time.
Probably.
It was much more of an exciting ride than coming down the river.
Now, I used to sit out front there on the church pews, and Granny Webb, who I presume is your grandmother.
Yes.
She would come out there or already be out there, and she told me she used to play with Cherokee children.
Well,
that's amazing.
The Cherokees were still coming through the farm when her mom and dad moved there, and that's where we got that one old Cherokee basket that was made from the river cane over on the Snowbird Mountains over around Robbinsville, North Carolina.
Yes.
They traded that. It's called a trade basket, and they traded it to Grandpa and Grandma Vaughn for the basket full of shelled corn. That's how they paid for stuff, was those trade baskets. And that was one of the baskets that was on display up at McClung Museum, along with Willie's baskets.
I see. Well, that's very interesting.
And we still found, in fact, my uncle had a good collection of Indian artifacts from had been picked up on the farm during plowing and different
Do we
things.
have any idea what Cherokee family might have lived on that farm before the white man came?
No,
Okay.
no, because the family had been owned by the Dotsons before Grandpa and Grandma Vaughn came there. And we have the original deeds that the Dodson family had from land grant. We still have those. I guess it must have been the custom in years past to pass along the original deeds, but the Dodson family had gotten it from land grant. And then they sold it to Grandpa Vaughn. And so we have those original deeds.
Wow. Well, the Dobson family's
Before
part of your family.
Because I'm afraid Ron Moore will have the phone cut off.
Yeah, he might.
While I'm on the line, I'm going to go ahead and tell my best story.
Go right ahead.
Well, see, I used to spend all my youth up there camping in the hollows, and I'd come to Webb's store to eat a honey bun and chocolate milk for breakfast. So I'm sitting there out in front of the store, and it's real misty and foggy. And as the sun starts burning the fog off, I start noticing monarch butterflies. I don't mean one or two, I mean thousands. And as the fog lifted to the top of the mountain there by the store, the monarch butterflies went to the top of the mountain, and they went all the way down the Star Mountain. They filled the whole valley. I mean, there could have been billions of them. I've never seen that many monarch butterflies. They were on vacation. I mean, migration.
A vacation migration.
Same thing.
And that's the most unusual natural phenomenon I've ever witnessed. I just sat there on the front of the store and just observed that whole river valley all the way to the mountains as far as I could see. Monarch butterflies. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say there must have been billions, if not more.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. That sounds like it would be impressive.
I think they were lost. I would like to have seen that.
Back then, it was in the 60s. Back then, you could camp all the way up to the powerhouse right on the edge of the river.
Yes.
And at some point, they did away with that. And
well, you probably can still camp, but you just can't have open fires.
Oh, I see. Well, I think they stopped you from camping. They got tired of the riverbank, the wild river, all those wild
right.
protective rules, and they didn't want people, walking on the riverbank and camping on the riverbank. And I'll have to say there was a lot of drunks up there, and they throw a lot of beer cans around. It's pretty trashy.
Yeah.
But other than that, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I've done it many times, but my favorite campsite was up Towee Creek, and I got my father's Plymouth Belvedere off the side of a ravine, and there was a little 4-inch sapling was the only thing that was keeping it from falling deeper into the ravine. And I hitchhiked back over to the store, and Harold called Polk County Wrecker Service, but they misunderstood him. They thought he meant Ocoee River. I don't know. So I sat there in front of the store for 4 hours. And he figured out something's wrong, so he called them back and found out they were running up and down the Ocoee River looking for me.
Now, what creek was that
finally they got over there and they pulled me out, and I got home before dark. So
What creek was it? What creek was it, Doug?
what?
What creek was it?
Towee Creek.
Oh, Towie. We call it Towie.
Yeah.
You got to get the correct pronunciation. You got to say Monroe County and,
Mean
Towie
County.
Creek. Yeah, you can't say Monroe. You got to say Monroe County.
In my adventures of going up there, both horseback and hiking, I've been on every pig trail there is up there. And I'm not exaggerating. I've been on every pig trail there is. I used to hike at camp at Long's Ford on Spring Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my horse would ride up Spring Creek, out in the river or the creek, and ride up to Maggie's Mill.
Yeah.
And that was a real fun ride. My horse loved it. He'd splash the water up on his belly because it'd be hot and stuff, and I really enjoyed doing that. But I've been at Smith Creek, Big Lost Creek, Little Lost Creek.
Yeah.
I can't even start to tell you, but I'm going to get off the phone so somebody else...
Thank you, Doug.
Make sure the phone lines are open now, Ron.
Okay. Bye-bye. Went to Ireland one time, and they put us on a bus, and they drove us forever to show us the rock walls. And I thought, well, big deal. We got those in Reliance.
Yeah.
What do you think about those rock walls? Do you think they're just property lines, or?
Well, those, it served two purposes. It served as a fence, and it served to get the rocks out of the field because the fields were pretty rocky.
That's about what I told Ron the last time.
yeah.
I said, no. I said, I think either they served as property lines, and then it was you had to get those rocks up out of the field.
And those were actually put in probably by the Indians and maybe some of Dodson's slaves. Those were there pretty much when my great-grandparents came.
The coming down the river, I've seen some unbelievable big turtles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they were that big, Ron.
Oh, no, I've seen some big ones up there before. And otters and everything. What other kind of wildlife
river
runs
otter?
Runs along the river there.
There's beavers in the river now.
Oh, are they?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends on whether they're damming up the creeks and causing it to flood and stuff or not. Yeah.
Something that
they're interesting.
They dam them up, and then a lot of disease in that water because they go to the bathroom. The best way to say it, themselves into the water, and it becomes dammed
It's
up.
probably not a problem in the river. It's more in the.
Well, they wouldn't dam the river. They'd have to be pretty good beavers to dam the river.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's mostly the.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, this is David Swafford.
Hey, David Swafford.
This is an awesome show you got going on.
Well, thank you.
Now, I've got about 3 questions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, one of them I think is just a legend. Or, legendary stores like Webb's I used to call it Webb's Grocery. What's the proper?
Anything, just Webb's.
As long as you show up, you can call it anything.
Most people just call it Webb's.
Okay. Well, I've heard it Webb Store, Webb's Grocery. But anyway, somebody had told me that they have a historical document signed by Abraham Lincoln hang up in there, and I didn't believe that.
No, that's a fabrication.
Now, the original land grant may have had James K. Polk's signature on it. Maybe that's kind of where that legend started.
Yeah, I don't think we got anything like that hanging up. We've got those deeds in a safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's your next question?
Okay, talking about you built this new store. Was this old store in the same location?
No, it was across the road where the parking lot dips down. The old landing, you remember where the landing was before we started using this one? There's some rock work over there.
So it'd be
just right above the new bridge, just right between the store and the new bridge.
Okay.
There's some rock work down on the riverbank.
No, that's the garage.
That was the garage. That was where that 51 Ford that
Neil was
salivating
salivating over. But now, is that the Maggie Mills sign on the door?
Yes, that's it. It's an enamel sign. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's it.
So what was your other question, David?
Okay. For years, I've always wondered, okay, when you go across the river, across that bridge, where Webb Store is now, make that first right. What is that big, huge 3-story It's the neatest looking building I've ever seen.
That's the Watchman's house, the one that's been restored, right? Or are you talking about the one on the left, the old hotel?
Yeah, the
old Higdon Hotel.
Yeah.
That's on the left as you go on around. That was built to. Well, the Higdon family lived in part of it, and then they had rooms that they rented to the railroad workers.
Yeah,
hey, that's a tongue
that
twister. When they were building the railroad,
that's
the
early
bridge and everything.
1900s.
Early 1900s. Uh-huh.
And then the watchkeeper's house, you can actually rent it, can't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
my brother rents that out as a bed and breakfast.
Now, wasn't that the watchman had to sort of watch the train go by and make sure it didn't catch the bridge on fire?
The original railroad bridge across the Hiwassee, there where Hiwassee Outfitters is right down under it on our side of the river, was a wooden bridge, and they had big wooden vats of water out there on the side of the bridge. And, of course, those steam engines would sometimes run what they called a hot box. The brakes would get hot, and it would spark out and set fires along the railroad line. And if it happened to set a fire on the bridge, the watchman's job was to run out there and take water out of those vats and put the fire out before it burnt the bridge down. So that's why that is called the watchman's house, because it was built for him.
Mm-hmm. And I can't. What's the website where you can go look to rent that? Is it?
Gosh, I don't know what the website is, because I don't read signs if I know where I'm going. And sometimes
I'd say just to Google Watchman's House, Reliance, Tennessee, and it'd come up.
Or Web
Brothers,
store.
Web Brothers store.
It's rented through the like float service store.
Whoop, we lost David. It's okay. Thanks for calling, David.
Now, other wildlife.
Snake. You had a snake story.
Yes, a black snake story. When I was probably preschool, I would say, a great big black snake came into the stock room. I told you the left-hand door, the far left-hand door went into the stock room, but there's a door from inside there that went into the store, right behind the showcase. In fact, the old showcase where we've got stuff displayed in was right there as you came in from the stock room. Well, that snake went in there to hibernate for the winter, and Daddy left him because he said, well, he'll catch rats and things that might come into the stock room. Well, sometimes people would go off and forget to shut the door between the stock room and the store, and he'd crawl out there behind the counter. And Mama wanted to kill him, but Daddy wouldn't. He'd just take a broom and push him back in there. But we called him Abercrombie. Little Orphan Annie in the funny paper had a pet black snake along about that time, and his name was Abercrombie, so that's what we called him. But he spent the winter in there. I guess when spring came, he went out for greener pastures, and we never did see him anymore.
I worry about all of his friends.
Yeah, I didn't want him to have a party at our house.
Or, it might have been a female and had more of them.
He was right, but he's still creepy.
Well, I had to give ecology lessons to a YCC group the last year that I worked for the Forest Service. I had six black kids from inner city Chattanooga and 2 white boys. They had two girls and 2 black girls and 4 black boys and 2 white boys. And across the river there, where the trail comes down beside the river, at the little parking lot right there at Childers Creek, there was an old barn site, and we had to gather rocks from that to build a bridge abutment, because the landscape guy at the Forest Service had ordered the abutment timbers too short. We were going to build a little footbridge across there, and they'd ordered the timbers too short, so we had to build in the existing abutment so the timbers would work. And we were out there getting rocks to build that rock structure, and there's a black snake. And one of my black boys, he stood about a head and shoulders taller than me, and wore stocking cap to the work every day. He wanted to kill it, and I wouldn't let him. I sat down and had an ecology lesson with him and told him how that would catch poisonous snakes, that we would be safer by having him around. He wasn't going to hurt us if we didn't hurt him. Of course, they'll kind of hiss at you or something if you mess with them. Well, they weren't satisfied. They were raking around with a brush hook or something, or trying to, find rocks, and accidentally, on purpose probably, cut into the snake, and then we wound up having to kill him because they had injured him. But
they big black snakes will eat the poison. Now, do you
Yeah.
have is there poisonous snakes along the river there?
Oh yeah, lots of copperheads.
A lot of copperheads.
Lots
I
of
would think.
copperheads.
But,
Yeah, they swim the river too.
Now, what about water moccasins? Are just not in this area, really. Is it?
Well, not really. The is it the cottonmouth? It's the
Yeah.
poison.
Yeah.
Poison. Well, we've got a lot of water snakes, but not really the cottonmouth.
I thought this area, people said they see them, but I always said that they've
I
not
think
been in
I've
this area.
seen one.
That's one too many. All right. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Ron, it's Bob Cash.
Hey, Bob Cash.
Oh, I tell you what, I am thoroughly enjoying your program here this morning,
Well, thank you.
and I really enjoyed going up to Webb's store. I'd be going trout fishing on up the river, and I'd always stop there at Webb's and get me some rib cheese and some bologna. And boy, I wish I had some right now. But anyway, I really enjoyed that. And Ron, I was just thinking, I may take Red up that way.
Red, that'd be good. You and Red go up there to Web Store and get you some cheese and bologna.
Yeah, and then we get in that river and skitty dip a little while, don't you know?
There's no skinny dipping allowed, Bob.
Hey, now, Bob, Bob, let me ask you a question. You went up there fishing and hunting. Did you hunt for that moonshine Sandra was talking about earlier?
Yes, I have done me some hunting, and I have done me some finding, but I've yet to do me some drinking.
Well, you've never drank moonshine?
Huh?
You've never drank moonshine?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what you was drinking when you jumped out of that airplane.
That's what I ought to have right there. Hey, by the way, talking about moonshine, I wonder if that sweet lady right there knows of anybody up in there that still makes homemade butter and buttermilk.
Homemade buttermilk.
Yes.
The Amish?
Maybe. Well, they probably do.
Or the Mennonites.
Yeah, the Mennonites. Miss Mildred Bates used to, I think, make, I know they sold the milk, and I'm pretty sure that they made butter. Made butter. They didn't make the buttermilk, but it made itself.
I think I'd check with the Mennonite farm up there, Bob.
I'll tell you how.
Or you might try getting a buttermilk cow. When my dad was little, he wrote a letter to his uncle, and Uncle Tommy was going to be selling some cattle, and he wrote him and said, "Don't sell that cow that makes the buttermilk."
I see. Well, no, now, those Mennonites up there, they still make it, but they don't sell it to the public.
Oh.
Use it for themselves, because if they sold to the public, it would have to be USDA inspected, you see.
Oh, I see.
You may check with Bird Dog Caney up here right near the airport. You may slide in there and get some milk right out of the cow up there.
Yeah.
Well, now, that's right. That's right.
It's not too hard to make yourself.
I might get Red to churn that for me.
I've had kids to make it, just shaking cream in a jar just to show them how butter was made.
I see.
It's not hard to make.
There's a Bates lady up in there that makes it, you think?
Yeah, well, she's about 100 years old now, so I don't think she does, but her granddaughter possibly might. Yeah.
Well, Ron, if you'd be so kind, if that lady knows how to list the phone book or get a number, write it down, I'll call you later, okay?
All right, I sure will.
All right, well, I'm out here. Y'all have a nice day.
All right, Bob. Bye-bye. Hey, we're listening to, you're listening to
We're talking
Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM. We got Sandra Webb Hyder here, and we're talking about the Webb Store and Reliance. And all the other things up in that
Well,
area?
On a different part of the Hiwassee River, let's talk about tomorrow. The Charleston Calhoun Hiwassee Heritage Historical Society will meet at the Heritage Center there in Charleston, 3 p.m. I know that Brian Reed will be the guest speaker, and he tells a very interesting story about some action that happened up there during the Civil War. So if you're interested in the Civil War, especially that in the area of Charleston, you might want to come by there tomorrow at 3 o'clock. It's in the old bank building across from the football field there at the school.
The old school, yes. Okay.
Everybody's invited. And if you haven't seen the new Heritage Center, that's a good reason to go.
Now, we talk about wildlife. Do you ever see boar and bear and deer and in that area?
A few years back, we had trouble with the wild hogs coming into. Well, that was before my uncle died, so that would have been quite a number of years back. They came into the field and rooted up most of his corn. He had to replant, and we weren't too happy with that.
Yeah, those wild boars are becoming a problem in a lot of places.
They can make a field look like it's been plowed.
Is it open season on those all the time?
Well, as long as nobody's looking.
The game warden was supposed to come help hunt them down that time because they were a real problem.
All right. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Well, good morning, Ron. How's everybody doing this morning?
Great.
Okay, this is Mama Bird Dog.
Yes, ma'am.
What I was calling about now, JR's girl is selling buttermilk and homemade butter and stuff at the farmer's market on Peerless today.
Oh, well, there you go, Bob. You can just go up to Peerless Road and
homemade buttermilk.
Find April, and she'll sell you some buttermilk.
Homemade butter and buttermilk. I don't guess you make it. You make buttermilk wherever it is.
Right. She's making, well, they're selling whole milk from the cow and homemade buttermilk, homemade butter, and she's got fresh eggs and stuff. And like I said, on Saturdays they go to Peerless, and on Thursday they go to 5 Point.
Yeah, they're down. We saw her down there at the First Street.
Okay.
Well, there you go, Bob. You're set up. Thank you, Miss Mama Bird Dog.
Thank you.
Okay, thank y'all. Enjoying your show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You know, speaking of buttermilk, a gourmet meal is a fried potato sandwich with Louisiana hot sauce on it and a glass of buttermilk.
Look at Ron's face.
Tell me a fried
potato sandwich.
All right.
And put Louisiana hot sauce on it. Of course, you got to eat it on light bread.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. That was understood.
My Aunt Cleta Walker was a private secretary down at Hardwick's, and she used to carry potato sandwiches in her lunch. And because of the red from the pepper sauce, the girls thought she was eating pimento cheese sandwiches, and she was embarrassed to tell them it was potato sandwiches. But I can eat potatoes 3 meals a day and in between. And Mama used to put French fries in a thermos bottle. Of course, we didn't have a cafeteria in school, and I had to take my lunch. And she would put French fries in a thermos bottle. And if you've ever seen French fries in a thermos bottle, how swiveled up and weird they look. A lot of people wouldn't eat them, but they were a delicacy to me.
I never heard that. Yes, somebody doing that. I never thought of that. They'd stay hot, I guess, wouldn't they?
Well, I guess they stayed warm, but I don't mind them cold.
Yeah. Now, in the store, what all did... when people come in there to eat things, everybody's talking about bologna and cheese. And I mean, was there other things that people had over the years that you could...
Well, you know, a lot of people are mistaken about the fact that we made sandwiches. My granny, in the beginnings, back in the 1930s, did run a little snack bar. And she would make hamburgers and, you know, things, sandwiches and things. But from my memory, from 1942, I'm 71. No, I remember. Yeah, I remember from that time I was 2 years old, incidences and things. But I was born in 42. We didn't make sandwiches. We sold you the loaf of bread, and we'd slice the, cheese and bologna and pack of crackers or whatever.
Wrap it in the paper.
But I've had people argue with me. Yeah, they bought sandwiches, but no, you didn't, because I was there.
But they did get they would buy some crackers. And
And
you could buy all the sandwich making stuff there.
Sardines, a big onion. I mean, we'd let you have a knife to cut your onion with, and yeah.
Sardines and onion. I just can't handle that.
Mustard, sardines.
This kind of reminds me that a lot of people have been talking about it. The apple orchard opens today.
Well, great.
And I went whizzing by there Wednesday thinking surely they're open and I was going to get some fresh apples, but today's the day they're opening, and they always have good fried pies.
Yes, yeah.
My mom that sometimes she weighs 100 pounds, and most of the time she weighs 90 something. She can eat a whole one of those big giant fried pies by herself.
I could eat a whole basket too. I mean, a whole one. Yeah. That now growing up, everything.
Well, where did you go to school, Sandra?
I went to Reliance Grammar School, which was
Where was
across
that?
the river. Go across the river and take a left down the river. It was up on the hill. It was I went to a 2-teacher school. There were 3 rooms in the whole building. The little room, as we called it, was on the right-hand side, and then in the middle was the auditorium, and then on the left-hand side was the big room. The little room had 1st through the 3rd grade, and then the big room had 4th through the 8th grade, until I was ready for 4th grade. And then I went to 4th grade in the big room, and then they finally split it up, I think, and had 4 and 4 maybe. But the Reliance school that burned a number of years back, and part of the old building is still there, was built in the 50s, I guess, or late 50s. Yeah. But
Who were your teachers?
Okay, I had a total of 3 teachers in my 8th grades. Had Miss Bess Cheek, 1st through the 3rd, had Miles Cole in the 4th grade, and then I had Miss Jeanette Cheek, who is now Mrs. Charles, I graduated from high school with him. I've forgotten his name, but I'll tell you in a minute.
Charles, yep. Well, that's still pretty good. You're doing all right.
McClure, Charles McClure.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I did my figuring over here, and the store's 77 years old in 2013.
Yeah, I thought we'd celebrated the 75th.
Isn't that
And
exciting?
then I guess you went to Polk County High School.
Went to Polk County High School, yeah.
Oh, the new one's a beautiful place, isn't it?
Well, of course, I went to the Owen, which was new.
Owen was new.
My freshman year, we went to the old grammar school part of the Benton Elementary, and they finally, the second half semester of my freshman year, we got to move into the new building, and that would have been in 56, 57.
Mm-hmm.
So I graduated from high school in 60.
Growing up there on the river, and in a country life, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
different from other people that lived up there.
And there wasn't a Walmart right down the street. I mean, I guess your meals were stuff that you grew and that you.
Of course, growing up in the store, we had access to a lot of stuff that people that lived out, in the private homes didn't have, and pretty much had to grow your stuff. And Daddy and Uncle Oliver always had vehicles. They had cars and trucks and stuff. So we had access to going to town. But Mama was a scratch cook, and she cooked for the workers on the farm, like when during haying season and stuff. Well, Uncle Oliver would hire several of the men from the community to help him get the hay up, and Mama would cook lunch for him, or dinner, she called it, of course. In the middle of the day, you had dinner back then. But Miss Josephine Lintner, who had married into the Polk County Lintner family, that's historical from up on the Dutch settlement on Frog Mountain. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Chester Lintner was one of the workers, and Miss Josephine was jealous of Mama's cornbread because Chester would go home and brag, Mama could make cornbread look like cake. It was beautiful. It was crusty on the outside and soft on the inside, and it was just, like Martha White cornmeal and buttermilk was all it was, but it was
the way
good.
you put it together, you got to build a little bowl in the middle of that and pour the buttermilk in the middle, don't you?
She just made it. Well, she just knew
I asked my grandmother why she did that. She said that's the way her mama did it.
She just knew how to get it to the right consistency so that it baked
you could
up
eyeball
just
it,
right texture.
Knew how hot the stove needed to be.
They got these little bags now. You rip them open and pour water in them and bake them. Yeah,
well, that's not cornbread.
No, I know.
No, I like my Martha White and my buttermilk. So she just scratched up whatever she could scratch up. She cooked. Oh,
of course we had hogs. We had big old pink slices of country ham that you'd kill for nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm gonna be hungry when we get done here. Good morning, you live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. I want some country ham.
Oh yes.
I'd like to have some of that.
Yeah. Hey, this is R.D. Russell.
Yes.
I had you'd mentioned earlier about the display case.
Yes.
I remember we used to, back mid-'70s, we would take canoe trips out of Dixon County. Come down there, stop at your store, grab some snacks, spend some time. Always was very impressed with it. Got to meet Harold with the beard. Was that?
No, Oliver had the white beard. My uncle.
All right. Well, I got to meet. I believe he was there and everything at the time. But there was. I remember at the time there was in that display case there was either a carved or some type of little airplane that he had put together.
Actually, my dad made the airplane. Harold made the airplane. Yeah, they made wooden toys. I think cheese maybe used to come in little wooden boxes, and they had to use some cheese boxes. They made trucks. At one point, there was a whole set of the little wooden cars, like the ore cars up in Ducktown, the Copper Basin. They had gone to elementary school up there. Granny taught them like first to the third grade, and then she took them to school up in Ducktown where they went through the 8th grade, and then they moved to Etowah and graduated from high school in Etowah. But anyway, they had modeled those little ore cars, and they had made trucks, and Daddy made the airplane, and he also made the little dresser, I think, that may be on display in there.
Well, I was fascinated with that plane, and just
he had never seen an airplane on the ground. He'd only seen them fly over in Ducktown. He'd just seen them from the air.
That was the story I'd got, that he had seen.
That's right.
Seen that and put it together. So yeah, those are very fun times. 15 years old, I reckon, and the first time out in to me the wilderness, you know.
Right.
But I had some impressive black snakes on that river.
One time after I moved home to be the postmaster, I was sitting out in front of the store, and I had my hair up in rollers, and I was just sitting out there where it was cool, and there was a couple young kids that had floated the river, and they were sitting over across the door from me talking, and one of them said, well, wonder what folks do around here for entertainment, or you know, just like way back in the woods and never got out or anything. So finally they included me in the conversation, and they turned over and says, you know what? And I says, well, I've traveled in 22 countries, and their jaws just dropped. They couldn't believe it that we ever got out of the wilderness.
And you had shoes on, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe, but I love to go barefoot. I used to show off to my cousins in Cleveland. They always had to wear sandals, and they were real tenderfoot, but I could run on the rocks in my bare feet. Now I can stumble over a spot on the carpet because my feet are so tender.
Yeah, I understand. Well, listen, this is honestly, it's been one of the best shows I've heard.
Thank you. Glad to bring back the memories.
All right, y'all take care now.
Bye bye.
What's the craziest thing ever happened in the store besides the robbery?
Crazy? I don't know. I don't know. I guess. Well, this is not crazy, but one thing that people remember from the past, we had a dog that ate Tootsie Rolls. People would buy him Tootsie Rolls. They called him the Tootsie Roll dog.
Oh, and that's not too good for the dogs.
No,
well, Ron
chocolate.
And I had
we didn't know it back then. But
Ron and I had a cultural experience last weekend. We went over into Meigs County looking for the cemetery at the Dolly Pond Church.
The Dolly Pond Church Cemetery.
And so when we came back out on the highway, we were right there at Birchwood, and I told Ron I'd run in and get us a Diet Coke. Well, he pulled up, and we went in. I went in. He stayed in the car, and there was about 12 people in the store. Well, me and the woman behind the deli counter and the boy at the cash register were the only 3 people that had on a shirt. And some fella come walking in the door with his Hanes camouflage underwear on and his shoes. That's all he had on. And I'm thinking, I think I'm just a little bit out of my comfort zone.
I seen a sign that says deli there, and I thought, well, maybe she'll bring out hamburgers, something like that. Well, the girl who usually makes the hamburgers was getting the bait ready.
Oh,
and putting the worms in the little blue boxes.
No, she was just carrying the little blue things. But then she goes, "Anybody want some from the deli?" And No, thank you. But I'm sure they're real nice folks. But it was a cultural
Can you still get the
experience
cheese
for
and bologna in there?
Oh yeah, that
Oh.
Charlie's garlic bologna. It's as far as I know now. I haven't even been down in the store in weeks, so I don't know what he's doing
Last
down
time you
there.
were there.
Has the rain affect? I imagine the rain's affected rafting
well,
this
they,
year.
they closed the river down for several days because it was dangerous to put.
Well,
people
we
on.
were up in the neighborhood last
We
weekend.
went to G Creek and showed our
Yeah.
video
Did you?
outside there,
Mhm.
and 2 or 3 days before we got there, they'd had to close the campground because
Yeah.
the water had broke through.
Evacuated
and
it,
it was
so-
traveling twice the speed what the ranger
Right.
told me than usual.
Do you remember several years ago when TVA opened all the floodgates on us and the water flooded out our bottom basement? We got 2 levels
Yeah.
down under the store. We got a middle level and then the
Now, why
bottom
did
level.
they do that?
Well, the flood conditions in North Carolina were really bad, and they had a new operator on all by himself. It was a holiday weekend, I think Memorial Day weekend, I believe it was, the best I remember. And he panicked because he thought that it was going to break the dam, and he opened up the gates, all of the gates, and let the water down.
Oh, man, that would be
and I was home. I think I was still in college at that time, and I was home for the weekend, and I'd gone up the creek to sunbathe, and Mama came up there and said, "You got to come home. The river's flooding." And I thought, well, what's that got to do with me? Because I was way up Junebug Creek. And when I got down to the road, the water was already backed up under that first little concrete bridge that was below our store there. It was already backed up past that from the river. And we lost a lot of equipment, lawnmowers and all kinds of stuff that washed out.
Does how often does TVA? They shut it down from time to time, and the water drops. And how does that affect your rafting business?
Do you know when the water's coming usually?
They give us a schedule now, so we know what hours and how many units are going to be on.
Now, basically, what they're doing, they're diverting the water through penstocks down to a dam. Is that what they do there? Or?
No, it has to. They have to be. We have to have water for them to be generating. If they're not generating, the only water that's coming down is what's bypassing the TVA system. It's coming down like from Foreigner, you know, the Hiwassee. It's just the natural river flow and the creeks and things from that part of the river. But it's different from the Ocoee.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
The Ocoee can only generate if they are diverting the water out of the riverbed, and so that takes away from the rafting. But there was no reason for TVA ever not to give us the water that we needed, because they could make electricity and make money while we could make money rafting. But we had battles with them for years and years. They've, I think, been a little better in the last few years and do give a better schedule from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We have a pretty much set
Yeah, it doesn't make sense why
schedule.
that. And of course, if you're up on that upper part, there are alarms when the water's going to be released.
Now there are, because after several people were drowned and this and that, they've put those.
I'd like
alarms
a
up there.
little more water in it than less water when you're rafting, because them rocks hurt your butt when you hit them.
Well, but you know what? You don't have hot water if the water's too high,
Yeah.
because you smooth over the rocks.
Right, that's
Yeah.
so it's
You need to just have just the right level.
So now, they consider that like a Class 2 river? Is that
No, it's
what?
a Class 3, and there's one Class 4 rapid. Though.
Yeah, I know where that
The
is.
one-
That, yeah.
Up at
Quinn Springs, has that always been a picnic area, or?
Well, all of my life, it was back in the 30s. Now, people that have been to Reliance, way back, remember the little red building that was beside the old church house up above the stores, a little red building. It's been torn down now. But back in the 1930s, when the Cherokee National Forest first started, that was the Cherokee National Forest. It was in that building.
That red building.
And they moved to Athens, I think, around maybe 1934, 1936, somewhere around in there. They were having trouble with the local people, weren't getting along because, was a lot of set forest fires and things like that. So they moved by night over to Athens. But Okay. What was your question?
Quinn Springs.
Oh, yeah, Quinn Springs. Okay.
I didn't know. I'm just sitting here listening.
I think that was built by the CCCs, maybe the old building structure that was there. I believe was built by the CCCs.
You think it was a CCC camp, or was it
No,
just
it wasn't
the
a
recreation
camp.
area?
The camp was over there at Archville, where the 4-H camp is now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that they were the one that built the structure and maybe started it, but the Forest Service then would have
Kept it up. I do not recall. Of course, I would have gone there in the late 50s. We always had fall picnics there for our family.
You should remember the old structure because the present structure was not built. I think it was built after I started work for the Forest Service. I graduated from Tennessee Tech in June of '64, and 2 weeks after that, I went to work for the Forest Service. So, somewhere in the mid to late '60s, the structure.
I just don't remember it. I may have pictures of. Well, Sandra, our time is up.
One more question I got.
Oh,
you were postmaster in the. How big an area did that? 'Cause I understand that.
I had about a 15 to 1800 circulation. My route went up into Monroe County. I had a number of boxes on my route 2 up there. Had 2 routes out of there. It went to Caney Creek. It delivered mail at Caney Creek. And years back, of course, before my time, when there was a CC camp up on up in Monroe County, the Ivy Camp. It also served Archville Post Office at Greasy Creek. The post office is actually called Archville. That was just a community post office. They had no routes. And then the Servilla, which is at Springtown, that was just a community post office. All of the routes were out of Reliance.
There you go. The hub of the world.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland. Hello?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Angela Mathis. I'm at the Tri-State Exhibition Center with the Hope Festival, and we just wanted to remind everybody to come on out today between 11 and 7 for live music.
And we've been talking about it. As a matter of fact, I had the ad in my hand here. I was going to read it before we went off the air.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Now, I think you got some entertainment starting here at, let's see, at 12?
Yes.
The Double Shot Band?
They are right now just started playing a little pre-show. But yeah, they're up there.
And you can bash the car at 12 o'clock.
Yes, the car's ready. It's not a very attractive car, but it's not been hit yet. So I believe I'll be the first one to hit it.
Yeah, and then I understand at 5 o'clock is Fro Daddy and the Convertibles are going to be there, right?
You are correct.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to hearing them.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting day. So there's things going on. It started at 11 o'clock, and there's things going on all day. Zach Dillon plays at 2:30 or 2, and there's dog costume contest and pet photos. I mean, there's all kind of things going. And cow pie, I understand. I thought you were going to throw them, but I understand that's where the cow's going to walk through a field, and wherever he leaves the pie, somebody wins, right?
Yes, it's countrified gambling, I guess you could say.
Countrified.
You got little squares, and then you release the cow, and wherever he goes, there's first, second, and third place, so we may be waiting for a while.
Well, be feeding him a lot here, you know. I thought it was going to be one of those things where you threw a dried cow patty.
No.
Yeah, no.
You got to get one. You got to get one that's real dry because the moist ones will fall apart as you throw them.
Sling back on you.
Sling back on you.
Thanks.
That's a whole other fundraiser.
All right.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you. This is for Relay of Life down at Tri-State Exhibition Center from 11 to 7 today.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Well, thank you, Sandra. Time flies when you're having fun. This has been a great show. I've learned a lot. We tell our people to get those old pictures from out from under the bed and out of the closet and out of the drawers and out of the shoe boxes and talk to your grandparents and your aunts and your uncles and get names on those pictures. Write down these stories because we'll always remember what happened at Pearl Harbor, but we may not remember what happened in your neighborhood and in your families. It's up to you to save this history. Next week, folks, we have the people from the Museum Center. Well, somebody else will talk
about
one more.
foundries.
No, they're gone. We're going to be talking about the foundries around Cleveland, and they're going to try it again. Good morning.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could take over the Duke of Whoop. We need somebody.
Oh, I don't know. I'm sort of Saturday morning is about my limit now.
Okay.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Good show. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. So we'll be here back next week, and then the last week in August, snake handling churches will be our topic. And the reason they couldn't do it any earlier is because they had to go.
They wanted time to go visit a church.
A church. And I says, we will talk about it.
We told them to report
no
back to us.
demonstrations. we will watch videos, but they will be no.
Did you ever go to a church handling church?
No,
I mean,
but
snake
I've
handling
heard
church?
them talk about the Dolly Pond Church.
Yeah, well, we went to the graveyard of the Dolly Pond Church. The old church is now gone.
Yeah.
But the Dolly Pond cemetery is across the street over there, and some of the legendary names of from Dolly Pond, the Fords and the Hardens, we were there looking at their graves, so it's pretty historic. And folks, we'll be back next week. Bye bye now.
Shopping mall.
Looking for America's original music? You just found it at 99.9 Whoop FM. Listen and watch online at whoopfm.com.
Kiesler Incorporated